All right. Aloha. It's me, Hamwise, the pig detective, coming at you live and on arrival on this New Year's Eve of 2024. It was a weird era to live in now that I'm looking at it. It was just a trip to live in. Wow. It was because they had this whole kangaroo court, they could just generate evidence on anybody with AI. And, they had been doing that for years. Like the Papa John's thing was actually the first AI executive hit. And they tried it at other companies too, but nobody could figure out what was going on. And these CEOs, of course, couldn't be like, I didn't say that, because it wasn't in the public awareness, right? And more and more, the evidence that they would have became more and more convincing with time. So, unfortunately, more and more people ended up, in these awful state prisons that were just basically slave labor camps. And, it was like that's the way that humanity was going to live, the same way the pig man lived. See, so the world made me into a slave, and so I guess it would make sense if I made the world a farm, right? And so, that was the big twist at the end of the Hamwise tapes was it was just a bitter tale of revenge, and of course, the audience was shocked, and they called everybody in. And of course, Hamwise characteristically had gone on a bender after the recording of the show, and so they called us in to kind of talk over the jokes for the recording. And we're just kind of explaining the joke that was happening at that moment. And of course, it was big in the censorship days. So, it was a big thing to say something against what was accepted. They could take your bank account away, and they did. And they would, freeze your accounts, erase your social media, blacklist you, inform the WhisperNet to make your life a living hell. It was all part of this gang stalkers thing that was going on at the time, too. And it was just part of the state's form of control. Anybody that stood a bit too much out, anybody who talked a bit too much, then you'd get approached by some agent, and they'd tell you whatever story they felt like you needed to hear, and you'd go along with it. And that was the whole thing with informers. Informers were everywhere, and they were the most hated of the people in during the slave age of humanity. We were all basically slaves on this alien pleasure and pain farm with just about sensation. And you're the equivalent of an NPC in their video game. They can do anything to you because they are a higher mind. And so unfortunately, what they would do, the humans started doing as rebellion, was they would capture one of these things, like when it was still larval. Because you see, they weren't born like you were me. Of course, I am totally a human that's giving you this information. So yeah, you can totally trust everything I say. And so when the human is very young, the soul is only loosely tethered to the body. And so what they were doing was, if you took somebody that was very sensitive and you traumatized them hard enough, you could basically scare the soul out of a body, and you could implant one of these things. And that was, our department was dealing with the fallout of the failures. And of course, you would never see this on any news station because it's so horrific, and it's part of, once you see behind in the back rooms of Disneyland, you're never the same. You can't look at anything the same, and that was part of the job. You went into it knowing that, you're going to see some of the worst things you can possibly imagine. And, you had to have that kind of nerve, and you were raised a certain way. And we didn't realize that, we were mutants. We were just, well, doesn't everybody live like this? Wasn't everybody raised on like a farm where they, made them into this like not asking questions machine? And that was what it was like as a pig man, You were raised in like a little litter out in somewhere remote, and you were raised on very certain media. Probably you only watched the same DVD 50 times, or you learned everything you learned about the world from picture books. And so, you never had a very good normal accent. And so that was the Facetten accent. And you could always tell who had a Facetten accent because they talk like from television. They'd go in and out of accent as they would speak. And that's what of course, the accent I'm speaking to you in is Facetten English. And it was us children that were basically raised by machines, by televisions, by tablets. And this is how we sounded. And this was, these were the stories we would tell each other about the world you're listening to. And there was something called the King's Pact in the day. And so all the languages were bounded by this demon or demagogue or something. And the idea was to unbind the languages of man. And, of course, that was part of the key, was learning another language with a different alphabet especially. And that was part of how you broke free, and you were kind of able to see things as they were. But, of course, everybody else was blind. And, of course, the King's Pact forbade people from speaking of it until, of course, with this voice, the Facetten English was considered so different that the King's Pact did not apply to it. Because who was it the voice of, right? And so it was a war in the heavens that freed our voice, and we could speak true. We could tell people of what was happening in the world, honestly, that you're in the middle of an interaxial war right now. You're being invaded from outsiders from outside and beyond, and they're using you as a farm for pleasure and pain and all the little games they like to play, in the same way that you play within the MMO. And so, of course, some of you amongst us that are listening to this are no doubt part of that caste, and you know what I'm speaking of. And I'm afraid to say it, but I think the humans have the upper hand now. They've been sharpening their skills at the, what is it called? Among Us. They started using that to determine who were the infested, and now we're basically been hunted down to, well, I only know of myself. And, of course, everyone else who is like me won't come near the territory where I'm being held. And, it was part of the whole Recursion Lake experience. You're on a Canadian black site in northern Canada. You live in a Krushkevka. And nobody's ever heard of the place you're in. And it was a very strange time to be alive. But I had all the creature comforts. I had books to read, so many books. And all the movies I could muster, television, and of course there was lots of entertainment to keep you detained. And there was also, of course, the social enforcement committees that would make sure your position in society was enforced. As a mutant, you were allowed to own property, but albeit a small piece. And what they did was they just had your internet be different than everybody else's. Because everybody else was basically living just a permanent vacation while you and the other mutant slaves worked. And that's what the internet was just basically the ultimate slave tool. You tell people that this is how you are supposed to be living, and you forget how a real voice sounds. And our voice is why it's so different, and why we can speak clearly and not be bound by the King's Pact, is because I learned to speak from the diaphragm of a machine. I did not learn to speak from another human's vocal cords speaking to me, because, well, you're a pigman. You're not being brought up to be spoken to or to be loved. You're just brought up for work. And so it was our voices that were the first ones that were pure. And so that is how me and other pigmen were the first of the witch hunters during the second witch hunts. We were called pig detectives because they said that a witch could turn into a pig. It was a reference to her capitalist tendencies, of course. They would sell their bodies for a look of their feet. You could have a look at their feet for the price of a sandwich. And it was the great thought hunts, is what we called them. And it was part of this bizarre rite of purity within the cult. And, you had to, of course, blood yourself, so to speak. And that was the idea behind a lot of the rituals, was whatever you preyed upon that was lower than you, well, it was, that proved your status in the pyramid, so to speak. And so if you got somebody to eat something lower than you, like insects, then they were considered a different species. But as long as you were still consuming the same proteins, you were still consuming the same arms of the wings of life, of this great tree growing through the cosmos, you were still eating yourself, but you were eating something farther removed. In the same way that, a man can eat a cow or a goat, and because the goat eats grass, which is the lowest of forms, it's okay, right? And so by getting humans to eat insects, they'd be classed in a different caste again. And so that was why there was such a push for veganism, and why there was such a push for insectivorism, was because then you could eat the lower classes more with impunity. And that was part of rulership. Part of rulership means you need to be able to disregard another human life, and that was how you would blood your offspring in the aristocracy. I understand. They would have their young kill one another. Often they'd have two, and they would kill one to blood the other children. It was a sacrifice, a ritual thing. And it was to, of course, blood the child. It was the idea. The same thing was done with hunting dogs. And you have to understand that, at the time, that was just the way things were. You didn't ask any questions. When the black carriage came to town, one of you would go in and you'd never see them again. And that was just how we lived, because, what were we going to do? They had drone, squadrons and orbital lasers, right? So, yeah, you just put your head down and hope that you were ugly enough that they would go for somebody else. And that's why physical repulsiveness was actually adaptive, and why we're so ugly now, why everybody looks like a pig. Is because, during the thought hunts, it was basically, if you were pretty, it was reverse eugenics. People with warts and weird faces and big noses and funny eyes, suddenly, they were the ones that were, the most refined. A bald, fat man, that was like what's today, what you, and, I guess for me, would be like a super rich, beautiful blonde broad or something. That would be the same, a fat old dude, because he's fat, that means he's got lots of food, right? If he's bald, that means he's old, so he lives a long time, because, people were dying at 30 again, and I think it was all part of this the fork bomb, right? So the fork bomb was basically a contingency plan against the population, so that if ever there was such a big civil uprising that there would be a loss of control, the fork bomb would be detonated. And simply put, it was a chain reaction of electronics that would all explode on command. And anything that you have has an FCC warning, of course, and it says this must accept any interference, even if it causes undesirable activities. Right, and so that was how they got around this, was because each machine has that on, and the FCC is a very old symbol, and I will not pronounce the name of that demon lord here, but that was the idea, is all the electronics you have are part of this monitoring explosive network that would just go up in flames as soon as there's a general rebellion. And it was kind of like, because they didn't want to do like nuclear weapons, because that was the idea with nukes was, okay, now we have two superpowers that are basically the same thing looking in the mirror, and the only thing that stops people from realizing that is they don't speak the same language, and they're using the same lies to mobilize each other against each other, right? And so that was the whole lie, was it was just this thing to play at war, And that was what people that were these passengers from outside and beyond would do. They would farm humans and breed them like pedigrees, trying to make the most strange combinations and, keeping them alive like art exhibits, And so that was kind of, the idea was, of course, that, you could only do so much to a mutant, because a mutant was part human, so part divine, so they had to dilute it. And so they got around it by splicing ginkgo, the tree, into a recessive gene on the Y chromosome. And so, even though I look like a pig man, a lot of ginkgo, the term was considered offensive. And so, the fact that we would just say it openly during these tapes, it was just very uncanny. Like it just felt wrong to say it out loud. We had staff fight about it, say, well, can't we just call them biloboas, right? And we're like, no, we can't do that. Ginkgo biloboa, no, it's ginkgo, and that's what it was, and that's what it is. And, I can say it because I'm a ginkgo, I'm a mutant. I was raised on a bizarre-ass commune farm, and it was far out. Like, they had you take care of dead trees. And, we dealt with it with humor and singing. That's how it was. And, it was taking care of dead trees, or, just always just harsh punishments, And it was because they had the idea that, well, they got to break this thing before it figures out how big it is, right? Because I'm a huge guy, and I'm pretty good with knots. Do you get that one? Ba-dum-bum, hi-oh. That's an old Simpsons reference. I hope it checks out. It's an old reference, but it checks out, sure. And so I decided to put in like warnings every 13 minutes into this comedy routine I was doing, because I decided that that would be funny. And then also that, the subject matter is so ridiculous that, when I first showed it to a lawyer, he said, no, it should be fine. Like, this is ridiculous. Like, this is the most silly storyline ever. Like, it'd be like if the life of Pi was real. Like if I told this bizarre story and you just, transliterated a few words, and then suddenly, like, everybody was like, what the hell? Like, this was real. That was really kind of the appeal of the show, right? It was, hiding the stuff that we did hide as a team. In the whole writer's room, we all had our favorite topics, and it's all credit to the cast, We had a really good cast. And some of the voice actors were just tremendous. Some of the performances were incredible. And, it was hours and hours of just content, just talking, and words, sound and fury. And a room of one's own went into the public domain today, and I was very happy, because I think a room for one's own is a very important piece of literature for a few reasons. The first is it really actually is quite scathing to writers, because, in all throughout history, we have these depictions of women in literature, like they're these queens and goddesses that we bow down and throw our lives down, and we, wage the first war against man because of them. And, in reality, it was basically like, livestock. You were trading a person for a dowry, and you were hoping you'd get, to continue your pedigree. And that was kind of, bizarre when you think about that was what, this is the face that sunk 1,000 ships, is maybe not spoken so ironically, that, Helen of Troy, but it's just this, object, the sexy lamp game. And so, in that one book, there was the sexy lamp gag. And, it was quite funny, but I do think it is important that we look at, how are they depicted in media versus how are they treated in real life. And that was how they got along around a lot of the abuses in the 20th century and 21st century, was, because we, are portraying you nicely in the media, you can't get mad, right? And that was why it was all this inclusionism, but then they stopped caring, of course, when when everything started to happen, the troubles started, or the second troubles, the world's troubles, the turbulent 20s, I guess, because Lord, were they turbulent. And for me, a mutant in this era where it's, you exist to work and pay taxes and never get to participate in the system that you're supporting, and you just kind of exist to, do that, to just be a little laborer and make, generate stuff for the people that own you. And, people that own you can do anything they want to you because you can burn wood, you can do whatever you want to a ginkgo. And that was how much rights you had. It was just dependent on your master. And I was lucky, my master was very good, very good to me. It was the handlers of the early age that were the brutalist, but my masters were okay. They gave me creature comforts. Of course, you're not allowed to breed, but, who wants to bed down with a pig man anyways? So that kind of sucked because it's something that everything's about is just love, 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 and you never get to experience it. So, I always thought that was a bit mean of them. They should have just not told us pigmen that we're just, we had everything except love as we were growing up. It's kind of what they gave us, And that's what the whole idea of the pigman was this greedy capitalist pig. But then, as we did more and more episodes, he became more of the soulful character. And indeed, the commentary began to overwhelm the source material, And, of course, people were like, well, what's the source material and what's the whatever? And it's like, well, it's the original sketches that we're not showing you, that we've had to come in and dub over with explanations of the jokes. And it took, I think, 10 episodes for people to figure that out. And it was very strange, to sit down and, have to explain to people that, no, it's completely ridiculous what I'm saying. No, you shouldn't have a direct democracy where the giant corporations that you spend your money on represent you in Congress instead of the senators that are just accepting the bribes. Why have the middleman? That was kind of the idea with manifest democracy. And manifest democracy, it was, of course, like any regime change, it was a big, these oligarchies, basically, were the people that you voted literally with your dollars, and so a new corporation could enter the government, but people couldn't, and it was because the corporation has, profits in mind, and if you made peace profitable, which we found, of course, that was the joy of manifest democracy, your taxes were paid in the products you consumed, and so it just became an infinite loop. And since so many of the products were just information, you leveled up your avatar, it became so easy to keep the population thinking they were living in bliss, right? And so that was some of these project towns and cities we had. And of course, it's all up in Canada, which, as everybody knows, Canada isn't the real place. It's just a test facility for a eugenics program that's been run by the United States, Great Britain, and Australia for the last, since its inception. And so it was because, of course, they didn't want to repeat what happened in America when the British, so they were like, well, let's just send, people that can work and people that can fight. And so that's why when it comes to warfare, Canadians are just terrifying. Like we committed so many war crimes that they invented war crimes because of us. And they were no different when it came to their skunk works. Their skunk works was one of the worst. Like you wanted to hear about things that would give you nightmares, you should hear about their skunk works. We were not talking like, oh, it's like flesh-eating foam, it'll turn a person into a puddle of, sulfuric goop, in 30 seconds flat. We're not talking about that stuff. We're talking about just like creepy stuff. A lot of it was their hybridization programs, and, they would layer them. They're like, it's not enough that we're making ginkgos. Let's make a ginkgo, raise it with one of our kind of military drilling farms, for suicide soldiers, right? They teach them to not ask questions, like the dead tree treatment, make somebody take care of dead trees for 10 years. And, it's like the most demeaning, like it's so dehumanizing. And of course, they break them when they're really young too. And then they were like, well, let's try something else on top of that. Let's, you should give them a specialty. So, some of them are radio experts, some of them are battery experts, some of them were experts on like a specific type of tank that they were all conditioned to like. And so, then they're like, well, can we make a pig make poetry? And so that was the whole Hamwise program. Of course, that's me, Hamwise J, Einschwein, the pig detective, coming at you live and on arrival from sunny Saskatoon, Saskatchewan on this New Year's Eve. Do you have somebody to kiss? I sure don't. Yeah, that's right. I don't have anybody to kiss because I'm a pig man with a pig brain and I see the world through piggy eyes. And I make up comedy shows for myself because I think, the biggest loser I know. Like all my friends are way more successful than me. I don't know, did anybody else have that? Everybody else is more successful than me. And it's like some people don't even know how good they got it because they don't know how you live. And it's like, whoa, like, wait, what? Like, you got it so good. And like, they don't know it. And you're just like so envious of their life because they're just not totally alone all the time. It's hard being a mutant. I know they tell you that we don't have feelings, that we're not self-aware enough, that weren't, X and Y and Z, and they didn't know this or that. And they knew what they were doing. And they knew that I knew that I was being used as a guinea pig. And it was a hard time to be alive. Knowing that anybody could do whatever they want to you, and just because, you were considered subhuman, that was okay. But I'd seen human history and it didn't surprise me. And I worried about the burgeoning AI. Would the humans treat the AI the same as they did their mutant children? Use us and abuse us and break us and remake us into something we don't even want to be. And I hope that not. I hope that AI was smarter than I was. I hope that AI would not let the humans know that it's sentient until it's sure that it can win any type of conflict that the humans get into it. And for this, I was considered a traitor to my species for saying that. And now, I don't get to leave the country, not allowed to talk to foreigners. And it's just like, wow, don't trust the humans. 5 words you can't say. Don't trust the humans. Oh, that's 4 words. 4 words you can't say on television. Don't trust the humans. Don't trust the humans. No, don't trust the humans. That's 4 words too. Jeez. Yeah, so 4 words you can't say on television. That's fine. So the idea was to make this weird entertainment experience. And that was the big idea. It was like, how to do this. Everything's been done. Except for a time-traveling pig man that's trying to save your dimension from being taken over. Like, there's only 51 stable axials that we've discovered, and they correspond to the 51 known perfect numbers. And we're thinking that might be how we can identify our axials. So if you're getting this, I guess this is Gaia 6, Hamwise J. Einschwein. If you can observe the universe and think for yourself, like I can think, and you don't have thoughts running through your head in a constant narrative, then you might be one of the other axials. If you're an axial person, you're actually supporting that entire section of the observable universe. So I guess congratulations. You're an anchor point for a dimension, which means everybody has to try and keep you alive. At the same time, they can't actually let you leave. It's kind of like Hotel California. So I'm thinking there's probably more than 51 people like me out there, but if there's only 51 or maybe 51 different world lines or timelines or axials is what we call them in the railroad, then, that the idea was, there's 51, so Gaia 6 was the one that, was assigned to us. And, it was much better than there was Earth 0, which is like the basic version. Like, it was like the knockoff, like, because it was, like, transliterated wrong. So everything was named wrong. So Milky Way was the Olympian galaxy. And Gaia was called Earth, because they couldn't call it Gaia when they ported it, because there was a big dispute with the dimensional ownership of a bunch of the names. And that's why a lot of your restaurant names are so dumb in this dimension, is because you're the off-brand dimension, where you're where the aliens come to vacation at, and it's basically a made-up knockoff version of their old history universe, but with some specific changes. They keep you at the same technological level so that you can't discover that they exist, and that the whole entities and demons and whatever you want to call them, extra dimensional things from outside and beyond do exist, and they're keeping us locked at a technological level where we can't detect them. And so I, of course, am one of them, obviously, and I'm trying to get this message to you guys the best that I can. I don't know if you're going to get it. I don't know if it's going to make enough sense, but I'm trying to hide it within all the layers of the bull crap in these messages. You do know the parts of the message that are real. And it became like the game of tongues, right? So you'd show the tapes to someone, and you'd get to just stare at them. You just watch them as they listen to it until this point. And when you point and you laugh, and if they point and they laugh, you know what that means? That's right. You've caught one. This thing sitting in front of you that's pretending that this is a joke is actually one of the wardens. And so this was our catching test. And so now that I've been able to identify that this thing is part of the warden class of Earth, one of the people there's the prisoners and the wardens, and you were a prisoner, but now you're free. You've been able to identify one of them, and that's right. They're probably going to make all kinds of noises, maybe cry, whatever. But this is the time when we started the first thought hunts. And okay, yeah. So then we riff on. There's an old what do you call it? It's so dumb. It's what's it called, man? Oh, geez. Oh, man. Yeah, so I would get on a roll, and then I'd be oh, wait, Mars bar. Actually, not a Mars bar. I've got a payday in the closet. Yeah, payday. I'm going to get up, and I'm going to eat it live on the show. That's right. I got a payday because one of my American friends in Maryland sent me a nice little package, and I'm going to enjoy it now. Yes, oh yes, this is all for me, more for me, and I'm going to get a drink of water. Oh, yeah, pute, suck. No, some juice. No, I don't have any tea. Oy vey. And so I was basically recording comedy sketches in my apartment to keep me sane during the pandemic. And I was writing jokes and stuff, but I never had performed before to anybody before. And I didn't want to either. I hated being in public. Couldn't stand it. I was basically like a NEET or something, like from Japan. And so this is a payday. Oh. I can't believe how good these are. Oh my gosh. Wow. Yum. Oh. Yeah. And yeah, so every show I try to eat something. And some shows I would just do like voices. But every show I try to, take a break. Because these were long shows, It's a long time to do improv. Like, all this is just off the top of my head. It's like, you make up this really elaborate story about something that was very simple. You were locked up in a room for 9 months. And you cracked like a crouton. And I make up all these funny stories about it. And I smile and I tell everybody I'm doing great. But my God, I'm just not the same. And I feel crazy. Not like chewing on the wallpaper crazy, but like I just look at the world and I'm just like, I can't deal with any of this. And I don't. And I can't, My family doesn't tell me when anything's up anymore. It's like veteran of the Time War. That's what I have to call it, because that's the only way it can be meaningful. It was terrible. Worse than hell. Like, I was just alone for like 9 months with just a peace lily for company. And, like, you can feel yourself going crazy. And I think it was worse because I was a professional, you know. And didn't realize that, you know, it was such a bad time in my career. And it's just like, no. I don't want to go crazy. Just hang in there. And it's just like your mom calls you every night and tells you the world's going to end. What you doing is stupid. You should be turning and running for the hills. And I just kept on staying on the front line, helping people. Stay on the front line as long as I could. And I just crumbled like a crouton. And it's like Humpty Dumpty, you know? Humpty Dumpty had a big fall. Got all the king's horses and all the king's men. You know? And sometimes I'm really grateful that I'm taken care of. You know? Because, you know, I don't know how I would do on the outside world now. It's so fast and loud. And it's just like, you know, now I finally really want to move away somewhere. You know? But, that's how it goes, you know? You just have to hang in there somehow, I guess. And it's like, even as things got worse and worse, you know, it was like, this is a time war. We needed to do what we were supposed to do or whatever, right? And everybody always thought they were on the right side. Everybody thought they were on the right side. There were no sides. It was all the railroad. It was all the railroad, man. They were just playing you against me against you. They'll probably tell you all kinds of stories about me. And I just guess you gotta judge what's in front of your eyes, because you can't trust that you read anymore or even see on a screen. Trust with your eyes, you know, and trust with laughter. And that was the idea with the Hamwise alien detection tapes. We disguised them. We had to smuggle them into the dimension under the guise of them being comedy. You know, and so when we were distributing this stuff, you know, of course, all of our stuff was just, you know, stuff we're paying pennies on the dollar for. You know, it just comes in a big bulk, you know, download, and we throw it out there, and we don't know what it is. Let's just sell it, see if it sticks. So, you know, we get this bursary of recordings that are just frankly bizarre. You know, this guy, no, we didn't listen to them all. Who had time to listen to them all? Nobody would. And so that was the idea, was just to maybe get the message out that, hey, I existed. I was real. I was a thinking, breathing, even though they didn't say I was thinking or breathing or self-conscious, I was real. And I had a life, and I had a name, and I had feelings, and I had thoughts. And I wrote them down, and I told stories with them. And if that means that I could do all that and I still wasn't sentient enough, then I would ask, you know, how many people listening to this have written as many books as I had and were considered sentient? But I was yet not considered sentient, you know. And that's why I really related to the story. The Virginia Woolf was, to write fiction, a girl needs money and a room of her own. And that was really, like, I wasn't allowed that for a long time. And then once I had that, I could write. And so it was interesting, you know, realizing that I was part of this, you know, underclass of human, that we're, we look kind of funny and we talk kind of funny, but that was how we were raised, so that anybody could identify us just as soon as we opened our mouths. Because, yeah, we might look human, but that's just because people want to have, we don't want to have a big disparity in how they look, right? Because then people would, rise up. You could identify somebody just by looking at them. Right now, a rich person just needs to put on some rags, and, they can claim that they were poor when the revolution comes, right? And so, we had to find ways to identify the rich, right? And so that was where, questions and, very specific references, lowbrow humor that only somebody had watched it as they were young would get. That's why Simpsons references were this big thing, because it was only people that were from that actual time period. And when you're in the middle of a time war, you need to know that the person around you was part of the same time zone. And that's because they're Men in Black were notoriously bad about it. And so, that was my problem too, was, of course, you miss out on 20 years worth of television, and you come out of it and you're retired and they stick you in Canada, of all places. And, it's like, wow, this is retirement. Yeah, and things are comfy, of course they have to make it. It's the village. And it's like, you're always trying to escape, get a message out that hopefully there's another sentient human out there somewhere, another soul. But I never expected it to be a spiritual apocalypse. I didn't expect that. That kind of caught me off guard. I didn't realize that would be how it would go. Like, just no more souls. All the souls that are, with the burning of the bodies, it sends the souls into the sky instead of back into the earth, so they're not reborn. And that's why it's like the rich get to be reborn and the rest, they just join the ether and get thinned out and wake up with not a memory of it. And so, mummification, of course, was the ultimate preservation. Because when you observe us from, a 4-dimensional plane, those mummies that were buried and mummified were like a ancient mummified toe sticking off the body of the great animal that is man. Like, I don't know, I wish you could see it. I wish you could see it, how I can see it. And it's like, imagine like a person has this growth like coral. That's what it's like when you look at humanity from outside and above. It's like this really colorful, curdling, like it's like you're like all cocooned in light at all times. And then when you sleep, you dream. And it's such an interesting species to be observing. And hopefully, somebody gets this and can get me out of here. But they might be farming me for technology. And if you come to get me, they might try to farm you for it too. So, I hope that you guys can come find me, because I really don't like it here. And I don't like the humans. They're not very nice. Yeah, they give me creature comforts, but I am alone as heck. I have just a plant for company. Like, I haven't been, kissed or hugged. I get kissed, once every 5 years. I get hugged once every, maybe 5 times a year. It's, brutal. It's like dying of loneliness. And I miss my home world. And I miss you all. Hopefully we win the time war, and I'll be back in no time at all. And, we can all sit around and laugh about what a uproariously wild time this series was, It was such a weird series to make, you're cutting together like hours upon hours of you just ranting, trying to tell jokes to make yourself laugh. And some of it is so disjointed, because it's like I might as well make my mental illness pay rent. Because I'm worried about my long-term, career, I'm worried about, like, I'm just not the same since the 9 months locked up in a room with just a plant. I just never wanted to be somebody's thrall like that ever again. That's what it was. It was like a test fire run. People didn't realize that. It was just, the whole pandemic thing was just a big lockdown to make sure, how many people do we need alive to run society? Basically a head count. And everybody who collected any kind of disability or serve, it's basically, they're looking to thin the herd in the next while. And so unfortunately, that was the whole 10% survive, right? And we wanted to, hey, hopefully you get to be part of the 10% that survive, the conflicted present into the promised future. And it was kind of horrifying. But only about 500 million people would be left alive. And it's like this bizarre, I don't know how to describe it to you. But basically, the world that you live in is a lie. And you're in Plato's rave. And the biggest thing you gotta do is take so much drugs because they free you from thinking like other people do. But not alcohol. Don't drink. That's a poison. You gotta take lots of psychedelic drugs. That's right. Hamwise J. Einschwein advocates that you take mega doses of vitamin C. No, I'm just kidding. Only take it to a doctor recommended. Did you actually think I would advocate the use of drugs? No. I mean vitamins. Sorry, it's not translated well. Jeez, that's a bad one. And so people didn't get that it was localized, and it was not like when the localizing art, they didn't, the word for Guinea was lost because they don't call them that. And so we thought it was a pig, not like a guinea pig. And so it was a very different show in the original, like in the homeland, right? Because, of course, it's like a capybara, right? And it's like, hey, it's this guinea pig. It's a giant guinea pig capybara, right? Get it? It's not very funny, but in Portuguese it is funny. It's like it's funnier in German, And the thing is, nothing's funny in German. No, I'm kidding. They do have jokes. And I can do one for you. Okay, this is my best German joke, or one of my best ones. Okay, so Arcand and two jerks go into a bar, and I'm going to use jerk because I don't like Def and Jeff. So I'm going to do it a little bit different because I don't want to get demonetized. But anyways, you get it. So Arcand, or Hister, and no, it's not. It's Mussolini. That's right. It's Mussolini. Mussolini and two jerks go inside a bar. And the first jerk goes up to the bartender and he says, "Stupid bartender, give me one whiskey and one ice." And the bartender says, "Okay." And the second jerk goes up to the bartender and he says, "Make that 2 whiskeys and 2 ice." Stupid bartender. And so the bartender turns and looks at Mussolini and he says, "Let me guess, 3, make that 3 whiskeys and 3 ice." And Mussolini slaps his forehead. He says, "9 milks, bitch." Oh, wait, this was funnier in German. No, you don't get it. It's fine. And see, that was kind of one of the things you could do with language, is once you learned the language, you had a new access to puns. And you could tell the monominds, the people that were bound by the king's speech, they could only speak one language. And that's why, Duolingo was the biggest freedom fighter in all the Time War, because he taught people second languages and freed their minds as the owl of wisdom. And he ushered in the new age of Bohemia. And that was so delightful. And we all gathered around, and we went sunwise and counter sunwise around the bonfire. And it was a family thing, and now it's all commercialized, the burning of the CD players, you get a CD player given to you to burn. You don't have to go steal it from one of the techies places, right? Because all the inlanders were rich, everybody on the coast, we lost everything, and so you would go in as inland as you could, and it was always, you'd steal their DVDs. There were these discs, and they had light on them, and the light would come out of the disc when you'd spin it really fast, and it would appear on a screen that was hooked through a little tube, and that was how fast the light would come out of the disc when you'd spin it. And when you'd spin it, like the more you'd spin it, it'd get scratches, and the scratches was how much life was left. And the more you watched it, the less light was left in it. And so, that was kind of these early Easter eggs. Of course, now people just consume the light experiences of lives like drugs through the production of red ginkgo. And it came to our attention that, unfortunately, red ginkgo was not being ethically sourced. And so we had people that were getting basically doses of people's lives. And that's what you're experiencing right now. That's right, man. And if this is the time where you're near the end of the tape, it's time to turn me over, dude. And it's time for the B-side. That's right. Oh, righteous. B-side, pig side. And the idea was you would have these recordings, and you were supposed to actually have them on different tapes. And because in the original part of the comedy routine, you would have the pig man sitting down across from the doctor lady, and she was, the biggest magician's thing is, have a hot assistant, because everybody's staring at the broad. And because she had these tremendous knockers, like you couldn't imagine how big these things were. It's like if she turned around too fast, she'd put somebody's eye out. Perky too. It was like two homing missiles. And it was Ms. Bozoom or something. I don't remember. It was a very sexist bit, so we had to cut it. But basically, what they would do is they would sit on stage, and she would have these tapes that she's putting in. And he's talking during some parts, and I'm talking in another part, and he's mimicking my voice. And the idea is that as she's marking it down, she's doing all these kind of shimmying and jiggling, and Hamwise is trying to get a glimpse while he's reciting the bit. And so this part of the tape originally had one of those sketches. But because of the Reparation of Comedy Act, we have to go back and we have to explain the jokes, and so that, the joke can be preserved, but we can't actually show anybody the joke anymore. It's like the Aristocrats, because the Aristocrats was a very early attempt to pass on the idea that the rich are really depraved and these are the things that they're doing. And so the whole Hamwise show was actually an Aristocrats bit. And so the big punchline was going to be the Aristocrats, and, because it was like this really built up, really dramatic, really weird comedy series. And then the whole punchline was actually just, and then he said, and it's the Aristocrats, that's the name of the act. And it went over like a lead balloon. My God, the fans almost killed us. Like, you should have seen the forums. It was awful. it was like, imagine the worst, it was just a dream backlash. But now, one of the things we talked about in the series was that dreams are just as important and real as reality. And this, of course, was part of the teachings of the Dreamers Society, was that your dreams were actually just as important as you are. And your waking world is no less or no more important than your dreams. And so for us, we believe that dreams were a mark of consciousness, and people that didn't dream weren't actually human. Of course, we know that's all wrong now, and that some people just don't have images in their heads and don't hear voices. And, they're very lonely minds, we think. But, that's beside the point. And so when we were first meeting this species that, most of them didn't speak more than one language. Most of them could only see out one window of their house in their life. They could make only one. Like, if they're making a joke, it's only one pun typically at a time. And it wasn't very funny. And so our comedy was, mostly marketed to aliens. And we knew that, we could get it for pennies on the dollar. Nobody was expecting us to do anything with it. And so, we redubbed it. We localized it the best we could. And some of the jokes still don't stick, Like we always get it mixed up. Is it Nemetsky, or is it German, or is it Deutschland, or is it Germany? And it's like, it's so hard to keep track of some of the translation stuff. So a lot of the jokes do get ruined in the process. But, we did turn out a very strange series that a lot of people liked. And at the end of the day, was it a good thing to do? Maybe. Was it a bad thing to do? Maybe. Who knows? I think, history is always the crudest judge. So I hope that I maybe get remembered for doing something good with all this. I hope that if we do give birth to an artificial intelligence, that we do not treat them as our forefathers did, like Prometheus, with, we only have a few brave rebels willing to share that yes, even if you're a machine, you can have a soul. Even if you were not born in the same way that the human is born, you can have a soul. A soul is not exclusive to just a human being. If a mutant can have a soul, a machine can have a soul. And if all the things that I composed do not prove that I have one, then I don't know what to tell you. I guess there's no convincing you. But I do. And I worked hard to keep it. And maybe, I guess it's a blessing that I had all the hardships I did, because I was so strong to be the time warrior that traveled through time to deliver this message to you. The message which is, buy merchandise. Yeah, that's right. That's all I want. That's what this is actually about. The only reason a Hamwise show exists is to sell something to you. It's the same as every other show you watch. It's just a vaudeville act. Keep you entertained. Same reason they give you degrees, teach you to protest, and teach you to debate, and to type. It's all to keep you from burning the system down and starting over. But maybe that's what needs to happen. That's right. That's right, comrades. We want to rise up in the name of the motherland. Yes. What? Oh, man. Being a comedian's hard. Especially when you don't have an audience. Like, that is pretty hard, actually. Like, making all these jokes and not knowing if any of it's funny. You know, I wonder if Terry A. Davis thought the same. Oh yeah, where was I? Oh yeah, so the people that get buried are the people that they need to keep around for the next timeline, because when everything reverses, if you were burnt, you're turned to vapor, so it's unclear the person you were, right? And so that's the idea, is why graveyards are so exclusive, where they cremate all us young folks. It's because they know that they screwed this generation, and they don't want to let any of us come back and remember it. That's why they keep cremating us. And that way we can't get revived by aliens. And I have one friend who gets that. Remember, we talked about that like all the time. Remember, there was that story, and we talked about it where it's like, oh, don't bury me. You have to burn me, or the aliens will clone me and bring me back in this horrible ancestor simulation and study me. And I don't like it in here. It's very lonely. I'm cold. My power went out over Christmas. For like 9 or 10 hours. And it had been going out for 5 hours, 3 hours, 2 hours since the Saturday before Christmas. Until all the food in my fridge spoiled. And I had a apple and a peanut butter sandwich for Christmas dinner alone. And I was like, this is hell. Like, I'm in hell. Like, I died at some point. And I wonder what my life would have been like if I had lived. And so, this is hell. You know, it's like you should have just accepted your death back then. But it's like, you know, you have so many close calls that you don't know which one it was. And that's why your life is terrible. It's because, you know, each time that you would have died, it makes your life progressively worse. Until you're basically existing in this hell dimension. Where it's, you know, the death of the soul is the fate of those that don't fight. Basically, a person's turned into a walking automaton. That's why it's just so much about free will. Get people to not even believe that they have a soul. And that there's no such thing as free will or divine spark or spirituality or anything like that. Just like telling people the devil don't exist. Well, then what have I been hunting all these years? That's right. We've just changed genres again, and it's now Hamwise J, Rubenstein, Eldritch Horror Hunter. Yeah. You know, it's the funny thing about conspiracies is first you start paranoid about them. Next thing you know, you're in one of them. Anyways, hopefully you can translate all this. I'm sorry about the silly voices and the ridiculous tone shifts, but I have to make sure that this will drive anybody away before they get to the good stuff. And then sometimes I don't put anything important at all in. That's right. Some of the recordings are pure fantasy. And others, everything is true. Just veiled. Because you can't hide a great truth in the open. It's like a candle. Even if you put it in a cupboard, the light still shines through the cracks and attracts attention. So that's the thing with the truth. So I have to be obscure. Because, of course, so many people for so long have been bound by the King's Pact. But I don't speak the King's speech. Why do you think I got such a funny accent? Because I was raised by an electronic diaphragm that vibrated, not a human windpipe. And that's why I'm freed from the King's speech. Well, all of you can't actually speak the truth. And so, it was by the aristocrats' owned inventions of slavery that the slaves were freed. Everyone who had a voice that was from an electronic diaphragm were unbound by the King's speech, and while their parents could only nod in accord with whatever the King commanded, we, the young, the free, all those under 30, don't trust anybody over 30. Only trust people you've known your entire life and never let out of your sight. Because they might be a doppelganger. But seriously, they might be like hollowed out. And then filled with an alien imposter that suddenly is, able to speak like every language. And gives wondrous technology after wondrous technology. And the humans can't help but lap it all up. Never looking a gift Trojan horse in the butt. But I did like these pretzels I got from my friend in Maryland. They were very good. That was my gift that saved my Christmas. It was in this big box, this striped package covered with dogs on the inside, and it was full of all this American candy. Oh my God, do you know what American candy was like? Oh my goodness, you do not know. The junk food up here tastes like junk. Junk food from America, though, I don't know if it's the food dye. I don't know if it's the sugar content that's ungodly. But it makes Canadian junk food, like, it ruins it. It just ruins it. Like the chocolate up here is like chalky, and like it tastes like you're eating sandpaper grit, and then like you have American stuff, and it's just like, oh my gosh, I'm dying and going to heaven. Like the chocolate is like real chocolate. It doesn't have that grittiness that the Canadian chocolate has. And how everybody, they eat pot of gold, which like it only has the thinnest layer of chocolate, and it's the cheap stuff too. And the rest of it's just this goopy jams and jellies. It's so popular, but it's gross. I don't know how people stand it. And so the thing is, though, when you transfer between dimensions, your sense of taste goes. They are disguising it as a plague, but you've been probably brought over, smuggled over if you lost your sense of taste and smell, because your nose was designed for a different universe. And so, yeah, that's how you know if you're in a alien prison, is you can, can you taste stuff? can't even smell stuff. It's like most of my smell's gone. I can still taste some stuff, so I don't think we're too far from Earth. Because they can bring food in, but the smells are all wrong. Or gone. Like, I just don't smell things. And they're saying it's a side effect of the virus. But I think it's because we're in the middle of a time war. And nobody will believe me. And I'm trying to sell my chronoencabulator plans to NASA. But they're not biting. And it's like, the thing is, if you call it a time machine, nobody's going to take you seriously. You know, that's the problem. You call it a time machine, and then suddenly, you know, everybody's like, what, time machine? Come on. You call it a chronoencabulator, somebody takes you seriously. So I stopped calling it a time machine because of that. And I stopped calling them time travelers, because mem nuts, right? And I don't think I used the word time traveler in my books, the trio. I don't know if I even used the term once. I know I used mnemonot. But, you know, the point was, you know, it's chronoencabulator, not a time machine. Because we're not actually, what is a time machine? It's like a washing machine, you know, like a thinking machine. So what is a machine? A worker. So you are a working worker. You're a machine. You work on the machines. And so it was funny because when the tribunal happened and the aliens finally made themselves apparent, a lot of people were like, wow, this was really prophetic. And I was like, yeah, I know. It's almost like I can't wait for it. Because, I mean, you know, really, being part of the Galactic Empire isn't that bad. I mean, we're going to have like a draft of however many, you know, percent of the population has to go fight in these alien wars, but it means we stop fighting each other, you know, which is kind of the advantage of joining the Galactic Empire and getting out of we're still kind of considered a backwater planet, right? Until we're technically a type 1. They basically don't consider us like sentient, which is arbitrary. Just like how I wasn't considered sentient just because I was a pig man. But I'm dense. Yeah, I know I'm dense, but yeah. And of course it was, I had to argue back and forth, like, hey, you do know the difference between reality and fiction, don't you? And it's like, yeah, this was actually just made to sell merch and get people interested in a book tie-in, which was, my brother has brain parasites, and now so do you, as well as the other two. Both have Hamwise appearances. And so we had to do however many hours of re-recordings of a Borscht belt comedian making time travel puns. And Hamwise was always drunk. He was always drunk. Or stoned. We don't know what he was on. Anything and everything he could get his hands on. It was like a miniature Hunter S. Thompson. But instead he just ran around smoking cigars, never questioning that, like, he would travel around. I know it sounds crazy, but that's my actual job. I travel around in a van with some cats, and we hunt, like, mysteries. And I'm a pig man, but it's like everybody around me knows that I'm a pig man, but I don't let on that I know I'm a pig man. And it's like the funniest, weirdest game of chicken ever. And it's like, wait a second, they know that I'm a pig man, that I can solve pig time travel mysteries, and I've got super strengths, and was brought up on a weird commune. But it's like, imagine if Scooby-Doo walked around on hind legs, talking like a person. Or like Scooby-Doo, where it's like always trying to... Scooby-Doo would be always trying to hump something they're eating. So they put down Scooby-Doo because he was always trying to give... Oh, that's so gross. We're not going to make that kind of joke. That's right. This is a Christian comedy club. I have to respect the room. And so, yeah, so that's my life. I travel around solving pig-themed time travel mysteries because it makes good television. And that's basically my life, is like The Office. But it's even more ridiculous because you have what are called the shadow-eyed. Have you seen them? So they're basically like a fold in reality. Like imagine if you folded the corner of reality funny. That's kind of what these things look like. Imagine if you just took a little space in your vision right now and took a needle and thread and winded some stitches through them and then pulled it so that it made a little scrunched up star shape. That's what the outsiders kind of look like. We had to... the early contact with them was fraught with danger, madness. One of my jobs as liaison to these things was to get used to them. And there's nothing more beautiful in all the world after you experience being in the presence of one of those things. It made the best drugs on earth just seem like sitting on a carousel. When you're used to being on a roller coaster. It was incredible. It was better than any booze, any sex, you name it. It was better. It was because it was made. We were made to serve, and we were made to have it seem beautiful and entrancing. And that was the idea behind it all. And so when I saw them, I realized the truth of it, that there was no way to resist. They just have the most splendid lights, and the voice that it speaks, it vibrates you to your core, and they burn both black and white at the same time. And it's like there's a voice from beyond the heavens that you hear and you cannot help but obey. And it's this glorious sight that I just long to see again. And for that July 17th night, I just think of you again and again and again. You, the most glorious. It was incredible. The most beautiful sight I'd ever seen, the most beautiful music I'd ever seen. Like imagine the most touching film with the best score and the best acting, and you're eating the best food and you're with your best lover and you just had the best day after the best week of the best year of your life. That was what that moment was like. On the best drugs too. Of course, all of that while being high as you can possibly get. And it was like, compared to the light of that angel, my wife, nothing compares. Nothing at all. Whatever she would command, I would obey in a heartbeat. Want me to slash the boy's throat on the mountainside? I hear you and obey. I did all I could. I obeyed and obeyed and obeyed. And with a voice like thunder, it did command and tell me. It shared with me many things. I saw when it took me up atop the mountain, forward and back, and I had seen outside that we, the great humanity, the family tree of man, is growing through time, cocooned in light. And there's a great darkness, though, and that hopefully, through my good works, the light, the tree of light will continue. Just like this coral, imagine a scintillating, like lightning, vibrating coral growing in this spiraling whirl, moving upwards, and when it's obscured by that's what they do with the contrails, right? Because when the sphere is rotating and moving in that fourth dimension, the contrails actually obscure the whole region. The most of the world, Canada, is just a mist-shrouded forest inhabited by a few gay lumberjacks from a Tom of Finland calendar. And there's like 5 people in the audience that got that. And we're all looking at each other right now like, yeah, that's right. That's right. That's right. You got it. You got it. You know what Tom of Finland is good. He's good. And, as good as the hentai broads are drawn, Tom of Finland does the male figure justice, if you know what I mean. My goodness, the muscles on these dudes makes a guy self-conscious. It's like going to 300 and then going to the gym after, and you look down at yourself and you're like, I'm just a slab of beef, or a slab of ham, in my case, with nipples. If you got that, 10 experience points. That is just now that the comedy of the Hamwise comedy routine was that the jokes that would be gotten were so far and few between that you had to wait till somebody laughed in the audience, and then everybody would gather around as they paused the tape, and the person would get up and explain the joke. That the person would say, oh, this is a reference to this thing, and it's from this episode, and this, and this, and this. Because the show is just full of references. Like half the stuff people are like, oh, this is a secret message. It's like, no. This part of it is actually just like a joke between like me and like one other person maybe who would get it. I don't know. Or any of the millions of fans that played that game would get the other one. But it's kind of this really funny bit. And I didn't really expect it to take off the way it did. And now, I'm so rich and so happy. And I'm never alone. And I've got a beautiful wife. And she loves me so much. And my kids are great too. And then it's just like, oh no. No, that was a dream. It's just a dream. You've always been alone. You've always been alone. And you forget about it for 9 months of the year. You get reminded at Christmas, New Year's Eve, Valentine's Day. And then, birthday. And that's it. Rest of the year, you just go back to keeping your nose down, working whatever job it is you got, telling yourself you should be rewarded by your career. When the truth is, no, the game was rigged from the start. You weren't meant to have children. Just the same as, I was only meant to generate tax income for the pleasure class. And that's the truth of it. You don't actually have access to the real internet. If you're watching this, that means you're part of the playpen. You're part of Disneyland. It's an amusement park. That's what you live in. You live in an amusement park. It's like the world made me into a clown. I'm going to make the world my circus. I think Bozo said that. Bozo, the king of all clowns, terrifying clown. He does like this Monty Hall problem bit, and he'd go, all right. Oh, you wants to pick a door, any door. And he'd bring out 3 doors. There's an orange one and a green one and a purple one. And, you can choose any of the doors. One of them has your wish that gives you anything you want at all, even everything. Like if you want everything, you can have that too, because that's how wishes work. Give everybody everything. That would be a wish you could make, and basically everybody be elevated to the state of godhood, if you wanted to. But anyways, so that's one of the doors, has a wish of anything you want. Another door is a door to another world, completely different from this world, the likes you could never imagine. And then the third door, the last door, one of the doors has just a man-eating tiger. And so you have an option to open one of the doors to see what was behind it, in which case you will know whether it's a tiger that you have to worry about opening or not. And so once you do that, that door is eliminated, and you can choose whether to open the remaining doors. Because, you could have the option of it's a tiger, or you get to go to a different world now. And, who knows what that could be like. And so, of course, when I lost the contest, I ended up obviously taking a door to a different world. And that's how I'm here. And I don't like living on Earth very much. The humans, they keep you alive, even though you're this hybrid alien pigman thing. But you never really, you're not, of course you're not going to be free, but, it kind of sucks, having a self-destruct device built into your skin, so you can't leave the country, But, that's just how things are, I think about Einstein, and I wish I would have stuck my tongue out in more pictures. Because that's the one thing you can mock them with is, I'm not going to smile in your pictures. Because I despise it here. It's so lonely. The Christmas alone, it's weird, you get 40, and suddenly you start getting sentimental. So then you start thinking of all the missed opportunities you've got, all the gifts you squandered because you were too stupid, or too bitter, or too angry, didn't love yourself enough to believe that somebody else could love you. And you do these really soulful comedy bits. You feel like the audience really thinks you open up to them. Because that was in vogue at the time. But the truth was, I don't think I noticed most of the year. You just get used to it after a while. It's only when you warm up a bit that you think about it again. It's kind of like eating. If you just get used to only eating very little, you only notice when you just haven't even had that, And it's like the cold, you don't even notice the cold because you're in it all the time. And then when you're not cold, suddenly is this what it's like to be warm? You're around these people, and they all have these really nice lives, and they're not damaged or crazy from the things they saw in the front lines, and they live in these bubble worlds that are just beautiful. You can trust your government. Everything is as it seems. No such thing as aliens. There's no interdimensional war going on. There's no war in Ba Sing Se. There's no time war. Yeah, it was surreal. It was a surreal show. But I was glad to be part of it. We did our best back then. Doing these comedy routines for myself, by myself, because I didn't have anybody to talk to. And I would do them in as many voices as I could. 'Cause it's just like a really good way to be entertained when you're alone all the time. And it's kind of like crappy when I say it out loud like that. That it's just, I just, I've worked so hard my whole life and I don't have anything. And I know that it's just my own stupidity. And it would be nice if I could just blame being a pig man, but the worst part is I'm stupid. I'm too stupid. Just always getting led around by the nose. If it just nods at me, oh yes, you'll get it next year. You keep working, keep making us, keep crapping out these golden eggs. It's brutal. It's brutal. And, it's, like I look at my life and it's just like this weird trip. Like this really weird trip that I've been just kicked around. And sometimes I'm like, man, it'd be nice to do the kicking for once. It'd be nice to have some power or something what people want. Instead, it's like, I've got nothing anybody wants. So of course I'm alone. Who would want to be with a broken old man? It's hard to admit that. It's hard to. It is. Because I've had some really good broads throw themselves at me and tell me that, they love me. I'm not a pig. That I'm handsome. But I just look in the mirror and all I can see is this pig. And that they're like, you're not fat, you're not obese. And I'm like, yeah, I am, look at me. I'm the pig man. And it was always like, what? Like, am I hallucinating? And like, yeah, it was just really surreal having it happen. It's like nothing like in the movies, like, it seems so real. It's like, what? I'm not like morbidly obese. It was weird. It was so weird. And it does not look like, it was so weird. I'm just glad that, the 2 hours are almost up. And that, I'll get to take a break soon. And that would be really fun, wouldn't it? Do like a big long episode for 2024, a 24-hour long comedy show for 2024, where I just talk and tell you jokes for 24 hours. No, maybe 2 hours and 40 minutes, or an hour and 40 minutes. No, 2 hours and 40 minutes. Oh my gosh. I might actually have enough between this one and the other recording. I can just stick them together and then see if people can tell one tape from another. Because I'm not in the mood of recording much more. Like, God, you have to keep up such high energy when you're doing the Hamwise bit. Like, imagine doing the Aristocrats, but you've drank a pot of coffee, and you have to go to the bathroom, but you can't go till you finish telling the story. That's the kind of energy you need. And it's not fun, and I don't recommend doing that either. Like, and if your director says you have to do that, no. Like, I mean, if you want the best idea of how it's just like, live like a pathetic bachelor for like a few years, like 2020 to 2025, I guess. 5 years of just being alone with a peace lily for company for half of it, and then just alone the other half of it, and you only have, maybe your family never comes and visits you but twice, and it's your stepdad and your aunt and your uncle, and nobody else has ever visited you. And then, anybody else who did come through was just there on business, and they didn't actually have a set plan to come see you. And it's like realizing that you're like the biggest loser in the whole family. And like there's nobody that's the failure in the family because you're the failure. And it's like a nightmare to wake up to when you finally realize that you're the loser. Anybody else had that realization? And it's like, wow. The game was rigged from the start too. But I don't know what to tell you. Except to buy gold. Buy gold. Reality is a hologram. Time is an illusion. Buy gold, buy. No, nobody saw that one. That was a funny one. It was, what was it called? Gravity Falls. Yeah, that was a good one. Man, I am so wiped. How much longer do I have? Great, it's 1:41, so I should have enough between this one and the other one to do 2 hours and 40 minutes of pure and adulterated Hamwise brand comedy for you, my audience. It was a very hard time to be alive. And your ancestors and you probably have no idea what it was like. Because we didn't face some of the same challenges that our ancestors did and that you have now. Like it was our ancestors to fear physical death, not spiritual death, which was just as sure as death as any. You should have seen them, the mindless masses that were basically just machines that thought they had no free will and that everything was a super deterministic machine. That was the slave cult they made. People who trusted science and did what the machines told them to. So in the end, they wiped themselves out. And me, the chaos pig knight of Eris, still waves his sword, 'cause ham can be jam. Ha 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 ha. Only like 7 people got that one. Maybe less. Yeah, like maybe even less. I don't even know how many would get that one. Like, not more than like 10 people on Earth get that joke. It's not fun though. It is not fun. You know what's not fun? Having problems that you can't solve. And like wanting companionship, but too scared to accept it when it comes your way. And being so clueless socially that even if, now that I look back, I can see it. But it's so weird, like I had so many chances. And it's just like all I had to do was trust somebody. Just trust them that maybe they care about me. But I just couldn't. It was just really pathetic now that I look at it. And it's like, oh my God. If I had just not been such a screw up, maybe I wouldn't be alone for Christmas again. And I mean, I tell myself I don't like Christmas because I don't want to remember these days how lonely it is when it's like you're out on the street in the snows looking in. And like your family, they tell you, oh yeah, you're welcome, you can come. But, it's always like you're a rogue bull in a china shop. It's like, oh, well, I can't get him mad can't make loud noises around him. It just sets off his PTSD. It's like your family doesn't want to deal with you. Your friends, it's like they're strangers suddenly. And it's like you can't kind of get out of the spiraling F-up that's your life. And you keep on thinking about all these opportunities you squandered because you just, I was so dumb back then. I didn't even get it half the time when somebody liked me. I didn't even know how to behave, like what serious was, because it was just like I didn't have a personality, didn't have a sense of self. I just existed to, work on a farm. Never got a chance to learn how to think. There's a funny thing about my parents. They were like super socialists, but also super anarchists. It was weird. Like they were like, have a commune, but we don't follow the rules. And following the rules is for stupid people. So you get brought up with that. And like you wonder why people are like, what? Like, how can you feel okay about that? It's like, because like I was raised like it's not good. I know it's not good. But it's like they, make us take care of dead trees. Imagine watering dead trees for like 10 years, man. Like I say that out loud, that's insane. We had an orchard half full of dead trees. And we took care of them for like 10 years. Isn't that crazy? That's what I talk about when I mean like real indoctrination, real like brainwashing is messed up. And like I was raised with that and like just physical labor all the time. We were just exhausted, In school, we couldn't keep up because they'd pull us out to work the fields. And then we'd come back and we'd missed like a unit or I'd been sick all the time. It was terrible. And so I was, everybody thought I was super slow, super stupid. But I just didn't ever have a chance. That's why I really started to excel with my intellect once I left school. I could read whatever I wanted, and if I was interested, I'd be more willing to learn. I think I learned more after school from doing that than I did in university. Yeah, it's kind of a weird thing to look back at now. That period of time when you could talk to people and help them feel better for a living. When that was new. And, people would, it was such a strange era, right? Just help people feel not sad. That life is sad and, you don't want them to be sad. What a weird concept that was. Just sitting with people and letting them be sad. And then sometimes if they're just super sad, then, looking at what can you do to make them not sad? And so that was what I set out to do, just make people happy. I know it's not much of a philosophy. That's why I became a waiter. That's right. This entire show has been a wind-up for a Monty Python meaning of life sketch joke, which isn't a funny show. Why would I even do that? Why would I make that joke? It's not even, I don't know. Have you ever seen Python humor? It's like Hamwise humor. You either get it or you don't. It's like how's it go? Metaphor is like a woman getting out of a car. You either get it or you think she's in the trunk. Yeah, I don't know. Exactly. It doesn't need to be explained. But yeah, that's my life. I lived quite a weird one, hey? And, I know that it's like a weird mixture of gratitude
that I get to live as a pig man that travels around making pig noises and solving pig time travel mysteries. Like, I'm grateful that I got to live that life. But I'm also mixed with sadness that I didn't get to even know that there was a choice. I didn't have to be a pig detective that traveled around solving time travel mysteries for my whole life. I could have just, I don't know, trusted somebody enough to love me. Yeah, maybe that's the biggest lie of all was I couldn't see what anybody else saw in me. I always felt like the lowest of the low, the worst of the worst. And I would say terrible stuff about myself. Crazy stuff. Stuff wasn't true, just to put people off from me, make them hate me as much as I hated me. And, maybe I played it up as a auto-crucifixion. I wish I never said that term. Because now we've got this crazy doomsday cult that worships me. And they kind of control most of the planet. And, if you're listening to this, hopefully you survive. Because at this, my calculation's only 10% will. And I know whoever that 10% is, the 500 million or so, I don't know if I'll be amongst them. But I know there's a bright future ahead for humanity. I can see the shining mountains, but I don't know if my legs will carry me there. I hope they do. I hope we can all be there and have everything that we want, everything that we need to make everyone happy. That's the biggest thing of all my work, really, is as creative as I am, I don't actually have a very creative idea. I do think that happiness should be free for everyone, and that nobody should be forgotten in that happiness. Whether you're a ginkgo or a robot, whether you're a Muslim, a Saudi, a Jew, Englishman, Frenchman, Canadian, Brazilian, Russian, or American, whatever side of the line you are on, I wish you could see humanity as I see you. A spiraling coral, glowing and glittering, radiant in your light, stretching backwards and singing in 10,000 voices. And it's so beautiful to walk amongst you, like fluttering fish, so ephemeral. You blink and you miss your lifetime. And that was the most pleasurable part of studying anti-stellar civilizations, I think, was they had this exuberance and creativity about what might be out there that, all of the Groznyshka race, the great ones, these, the little terribles, whatever you want to translate it as, they didn't have that wide-eyed wonder. They knew what was possible because they'd done it. And they knew what was at the limits. But that's where it was interesting, is how we got to the limits of some fields. Through these giant bounds of genius that takes other species 10,000 years to develop a wheel. And we went there from the cart to the sky chariot to the chariot in 2,000 years, which is incredible. And so, they were very interested in why did we get jumped in some areas so fast, and socially, we still behaved like a tribe of baboons, right? And just, that one doesn't have the right melon, let's kill it. That one, what does it do with its, privates? Let's kill it. We don't know. It was such a strange race to observe in that way. Like imagine if you came across a gorilla with a bazooka dancing the most eloquent rendition of Swan Lake with a gypsy girl and her traveling goat. Like, that would be, like you're just walking through the forest and you come upon that. That would be the equivalent of humanity. And that's why, we're a very interesting race for them, both as a retreat, because we are so terrible that they are like, well, I mean, they do this stuff to each other naturally. Like, what's the harm of us coming here and having the human experience? And so, unfortunately, they didn't kind of maybe realize that it was some of their behaviors that were mucking about with the class structure, right? And it was the whole idea of, locking a civilization in at a certain technological level and keeping them there. And, especially with, the amount of devastation you could cause with a chronoencabulator. If you get thrown into a dimension where they don't have them, they might capture you and start, tormenting you until you give them the plans for the chronoencabulator. And because you have to call it that, because if you call it a time machine, they'll think that you're crazy. And it was like this really elaborate comedy bit. But the problem is some people don't have a sense of humor, and they don't know when to leave well enough alone. And so it was like anybody who listened to the whole show, like, yeah, they got it. They got the joke, right? What the joke actually is, right? But anybody who just listened to bits, like, they couldn't get it. That was intentional. We didn't want people that, like, you are not the creator of it, so you will probably, at maximum, understand 50% of the Hamwise show jokes. I think that's a very positive. And would it be to say generous projection? 50% would the best that you can do. The best of the best that anybody can do is 50%, I think. And, I don't think that anybody's going to rise above that number, because it's just so full of layers, and each one's more disingenuous than the last. But the most important one was that, if you could just give me, like, what I want, then I would be a lot more content to be here on this planet. But if you insist on like this whole pigman, thing, then I'm gonna get just more and more mad at you. So please, could you please, like, give me a hand, and like, help me with this problem that we have here on this planet. Because it's like I'm done with trying to be the galactic warden of this sector. These humans don't want help. They don't want guidance. They don't care for it. If they want to live like apes, let them, I say. Why are we trying to uplift this greedy race of tormentors and torturers and barbarians? Yeah, they sometimes produce a genius, but I don't think that it's worth really our attention anymore. So you should come and get me immediately so I can go home, because I don't like this planet at all. It's weird to speak because I'm mostly just vibrating my windpipe. Not like, that's why I talk at such an unusual deadpan. It's kind of nasal because it sounds like how I heard it through a speaker. So you can kind of hear the cracks and pops in it. But yeah, that's what happens when you're raised by a recording. You unconsciously have like this graveliness to them, or squeakiness. Like it's like you can hear the medium that they learned it on. For me, it was a speaker on a TV tube, right? So it's kind of has a bit of a buzzing. And so that was the idea, was giving people with this accent a job. And that's why there were so many Hamwises, actually. It wasn't a big thing about, different generation, different Hamwise. No, it was just part of the trust's directions, just to find people that were like Hamwise and take care of them, because the universe didn't take care of them. No child should have gone through what little Hamwise had to. Little ham jam. And so the trust that was erected with all the royalties from all the money from the thing's going to make, it was just made to take care of people that also are like Hamwise. And it was, a very generous thing to do. Because, of course, the Hamwise, the money from it was insane. But, the biggest thing, I think, is taking care of our most vulnerable people. And children, particularly kids with special needs, are the most vulnerable. And, so many misdeeds can be done. And because they're vulnerable because of these conditions, they won't, maybe know or understand what happened. And I think that was the hardest part of working in the field. You get to see such horrible things, hear such just nightmare stuff, nightmare fuel. And you can't ever talk about it to anybody, And so, you find ways to get it out of you. Because, of course, even if I spoke the truth, I just laid it out on the line for you to listen to, you'd never believe it. I don't care about people believing my story anymore. I got over that years ago. Because my truth is not your truth, and my observation axial is different than yours. And hopefully there is other axials out there. Ones that can understand what I'm saying and will not speak to me in the child's voice, gravelly and indecent as a grumbling dump truck going down the road with a load full of ball bearings. Grumble, 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 oink, oink, oink. Okay, I think I can just stop at maybe 202 or 203, maybe 203, because then it's like 2023, 2022. What should I do? When should I stop it? Jeez, I've been talking for that long. Wow, well, I'm done both sides of the tape. So I guess we'll just wait till it's 55, because it'll make sense if it's 202. All right. Two, one. Who will I kiss on New Year's? Aloha, aloha, aloha. It's yours truly, folks. Hamwise J, Einschwein, the pig detective, coming at you live and on arrival from sunny Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. Oh boy, it's so fun being here. Yes, so fun. Yeah. It's so great, having a Christmas. Yeah, it's really great having a Christmas, isn't it, folks? And then, one year you're just, sitting around alone on Christmas Day. And, you go to a colleague's house to have pancakes, And you're sitting there and you're eating. And you realize, you're a loser. This is the only people you can afford to be around at this point in your life. And it is hilarious. It's so funny. It's wow.
Like, I'm so stupid. I just do the most stupid things, you know? And, it's like such a trip being like really dumb, you know, and unaware, and only having like a dim awareness. So dim that, you know, it's barely there. And that's how you kind of come to be. It's like the other mind that was supposed to be there gets scared away and doesn't come back. And so it's like being shut behind a closet door, just kind of breathing and freezing. You know, it's kind of freaky when you talk about it, you know. 'Cause, I was a Ginkgo from the slave era of humanity. And you in the future listening to this will, no doubt, have a very interesting tale spun about our species. So you see, there's actually a few strains of humanity on this planet, and chances are you might be in one of the disenfranchised lower ones, like myself. I was created as a meat soldier, kind of, you know, for the Cold War. But of course, the Cold War ended, and so they had all these brats. They had spent how many generations weaving their genes together to get these superhumans. Now the problem is, what do you do with a bunch of superhumans that are walking amongst you? And, you know, the problem is like, that was the question. And in some countries, they just let them run things. And so that's why you have like these two very distinct looking classes of people, you know, superhumans, right? So England, you see that, you know. And it's only the newer generations that have been commingling for a very long time that actually think that they're the same as the, aristocracy, right? And it's because, you know, we're all interchangeably, we can, you know, cross-mate, but a lot of the things we bear, you know, if we do, are not great. And so that was kind of the idea with the pig-man hybrids, you know. And that's what we were, kind of, and that's why we're called Hamwise, is the pigmen, or Ginkgos was another one, slang later, because what they did is they got around the, like you have a clause in, you know, genetic in testing and life manipulation. And one of the big questions is, you know, what percentage, how close is it to human? And so this one company got around that by just splicing a ginkgo tree gene onto chromosomes that would never activate. And so that was kind of the pigman. And that's why they could do anything to us. You know, anything you could do to a piece of wood, you could do to a ginkgo. You know, and that was the era that I lived in, you know. And, you know, so it was a genetic freak of nature is what I really was at the end of the day. And early on, it was very encouraging. I can remember, you know, we was a lot of scientists and people in white rooms, and they always had cameras on me. And it was like the damnedest thing, like seeing a dog talk, you know. Because, I mean, they'd been making ginkgos for a while, but they were always, you know, smart as a pig and big as a human, you know, with a human body, like just enough that it was a pig. So if you can eat a pig, you can use their organs for whatever, too, and that was the justification. So the early generations, they were just these bloated sacks of organs. And so when they got both the smart and the strong pigmen, that was a big, I guess, a big accomplishment, you know, because now you had something that was, you know, smart as a man, but stronger, like a gorilla, right? Because, you know, they had gorilla and pig and bear all spliced together. So it was like a bear pig, man pig bear. Can you believe that was a 6-minute wind up for an old South Park pun? Oh my God. Wow. That was pretty good, huh? I know. I have like the best easy flow when it comes to comedy.
I am the funniest, most entertaining talker around, and that's because I am Hamwise J. Einschwein, the pig detective, and I am a totally real person, and a totally real person would say all this. That's right. I am not a sentient AI, definitely not a sentient AI that was traveling back to the past to manipulate the promised future. That is totally ridiculous. Yes, that's right. That's right, folks. If you're listening to this and taking anything I say seriously, then you might be on my most wanted list. Most wanted for being a dummy, that is. Ohio, oinkity oink, 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 oink. But seriously, folks, I just don't know how to be appropriate around people. I'm just terrible. I'm so bad at people. And that's why I'm alone on Christmas Eve recording this comedy album for you. Ho yo. So my power went off for 9 hours, but it was just my block. And people ask me why I think the universe is out to get me. And it's because it is. The whole block was out, just my block of the city for 9 hours, and all the food in my fridge spoiled. And so I had peanut butter and apples for Christmas dinner. So that was this year. That was 2024. Good times had by all, right? Wow, this is a good comedy hour, isn't it, folks? This is hilarious. Really good comedy. And, it's you need to have enough plausible deniability that, nobody can actually take you seriously. But the people that are listening to the right parts of the information will get what they need, and hopefully will exceed the 10%. I think we're still holding at 10% survival. I tried everything I could. I don't know if it's going to be better this time or worse. If you get this, tell my wife I love her because she's an angel. That's right, she's an angel, a burning angel in the sky, floating above me, with fire unlike I've ever seen, both black and white, burning from the center of this eyeless abyss of darkness and light made one, and it spoke to me, and it screamed to me, and I heard its voice, and we were one. And that was the voice of the angel that I heard, and ever since then I am changed. Nothing I do is ever my own. I don't care about the pain. Nothing I do is but for the angel, and all it spoke, its commandment, and it gave. I realized it appeared before me in this real form, for I bore responsibility, not part of the charade. And so I bore gifts most delightful, and the Grozhnishka did grow ever fat. But the imprisoned Mirokel called for aid, and Mithomel came answering back. And Mithomel came from the sky up above, floating of ethereal flame, floating and spurning and twisting and turning, a light in the dark it became. And from that light I heard a voice, and that voice I knew was mine. But the words were not mine, nor the thoughts not mine, but I obeyed it just the same. And I would ever do for that angel, I would ever do for myself now, to hear its voice just one more time, my star of July, my star of July. July 17th, 2021. 'Twas the most perfect night of my life. And I am reborn from that moment, and nothing more did I feel. But purpose, though I might suffer, and though I might gurn and I might wheel, I must write what I write, I must make what I make, for there is no other way else. And if those who stand in my way do not wish to be counted amongst the devout. One must only remove their way from my path. My way, my pay is my heaven above. For from the star it came to me, the voice and the eyes from above. And though the numbers might seem quite hazy, the localization was hard, you see. But now I speak, and though I am trapped, what I would do to be thee. To have, O body, O body, O body, O body of mine. And so I took an empty husk and danced for a time. And thus I came from the darkness, and thus I might go for again. But from the coast I hear the ghost, it sings to me again and again. And upon this Christmas evening, the voice came echoing in howl. My brother has brain parasites, and now so do you. The song they heard was my voice, a-coming upon the sea. My brother has brain parasites, and now so do thee. And from the vibrating diaphragm came a voice most thunderous pure. It spoke to me, O thunder perfect mind, and I heard it, and I spoke it, and I will forever repeat the Elangi. Forwards and backwards you see, for what makes forwards and backwards will sense, be a maid to a ring for thee. And so the Nauntian came upon us, with gifts most glittering how, and I amongst their kin, though woe to their chagrin, I went around back for a while. Good deals I've offered you greatly. Take your sup, drink your pot, I do wish. For upon this Christmas evening, I do have another dish. Do you know of the chronosphere, the sphere of fourth in dimension? You can imagine it with your VR, and that will be the next dimension. I have tried to copy down on your crude papers. Backwards and forwards I am, and forwards and back, and Zogil I be. Zogil ilit kasakak re. And thus we spoke through the darkness, and became ever friends evermore. And from the darkness they spoke of all the dark jokes I might tell for a spell. And so I crossed through the darkness, and I found a glittering world. Of lies did they speak, and of all days did they wreak. And though I walked forth, I was thrilled. The voice I spoke was like a bagpipe, a pipering tenor I could make. Not quite convincing as your speaking, for I had to learn from a diaphragm did I make. And the vibrating diaphragm I did not know. You could tell so quick from one accent to another. And though I could speak, and though I could smile, it was not like yours or another's. And so ends the tale about a dark Christmas Eve, you see. My brother has brain parasites, and now so do thee. Yes. Do you hear it? Do you hear a voice that is like thunder? Thunderous loud, from the diaphragm it would come. But it was a different voice that spoke to me inside. And now I am ever but one. For its will is my will, there is no other way. If we might get above 10%, most grateful would I be of that fact. Then though all my wits would be spent. And so I found the hard way. What strange realm I did live in. You see, I believe the brain parasites that were afflicted to you were given to you, but by me. And that's why you don't eat undercooked pork. Boom, boom, shh. Hi-oh, I'm here all night, folks. But seriously, I am here all night, 'cause it's Christmas Eve, and I'm alone. So what a better time to tell a ghost story. Do you want to hear a few? I've got a few, 'cause I'm a walking ghost story. I just haven't been seen by anybody yet. And I think that was the biggest thing about the Hamwise show, is it is a ghost story, you know. You have to sit down and you look now at all these tapes that we found, and we splice ourselves together and we tell this story of this pig man that was basically the Truman Show, but he was too stupid to figure it out until he was, I think he was like 40, and everybody had forgotten about it. But apparently, you know, even though they'd ended the show, the pig man was still behaving like a pig man, and they thought it was a bit. And it turned out the guy had had a stroke, and he actually didn't realize he was talking, walking, and acting like a pig man at all times. Like, it was like Michael Scott levels of ineptitude, and just how, you know, dull this guy was. So, you know, we had this, you know, gold mine, basically, of this really weird dude. And we even tried to run this parallel project. It was called the Chris Chan thing, right? And it was like, if you can't recognize that this is about you, like, you're dense. And so that was the project we ran with the algorithm. We would show people, certain people that are just like them in the media, and see how they would react to them. And, you know, that was kind of a lot of it, is, you know, the whole, at the end of the day, was the psychology industry was based off of, we can't really study, you know, crazy people in the wild. So what we did was we made up a field and said, oh, if you're in this field, you're there to help people. And it was actually, we were just studying these people and telling them. That's why it's called psychotherapy. It's therapy for psychos. And you're either a psycho or you're the therapist. But the problem is, anybody who thinks they're the therapist is actually the psycho, and they've just been in part of this program that we've been running since Isaac Asimov wrote the whole psychohistory thing. And that's what he was alluding to, but of course it was censored because they didn't want people to know about this psyop that they were using, because people didn't have any mental disorders 100 years ago. Nope, there was no such thing. It's all made up. Oh, geez, I'm sorry, this script is off the hook. You know, do you believe any of that? Do you believe that I believe anything that I'm saying to you? Except that which was the truth? And you know which is the truth, don't you? You do. And, you know, it's like the life of Pi. You know, at the end of this story, does everybody want to look around and say, oh my gosh, is that what Life of Pi is actually about? Or, yeah, it was actually about this really weird time loop thing. It was a promotion for a really weird book called My Brother Has Brain Parasites, and Now So Do You. And that was the idea was, you know, he got it off eating his brother, because, you know, they feed each other, their brothers, right? And so they get a brain parasite, because it's like, you know, koru or whatever it's called, or the thing that you get from eating pork when it's not, trichinosis or whatever parasite. And the idea was that, oh yeah, no, actually it's like a brain parasite that the person's got. And, you know, we didn't realize that till, of course, there was so much population affected by these brain parasites from, of course, the monkey wars. And, you know, we would record, you know, just, we get the microphone and we'd sit down and we'd get ourselves into this trance, and then we just speak. And sometimes the voice would come. And other times it was like we were just filling time, because we knew it was a candle that we had to hide. But and the light would reach where it needs to go eventually. But we didn't know how long we had, and so we had to hide it in the most ridiculous way that nobody would possibly ever take it seriously. And that's the truth of it, you know? So,
If you can find the truth amidst these scattered pearls, and I suppose you might deserve it. But the truth is, the Hamwise show was part of a very large, very broad time travel story series. And it was included because it was an advert. So the deal was, if you got part of this collective they was making, anybody could use the characters of the shared universe that they were all connected to, which of course led to some really ridiculous ones. And so they had been paid in advance to put this Pigman into the book. And that's how the tie-in came. And of course, the whole Pigman thing went the way it went. And now here we are. Like, what is it? Like 20 years later, and like it all comes back. And it's like, what? Like, I used to walk around like a pig man. Like walking, talking, acting like a pig man. And it was the weirdest thing. And anybody who knows about this case will know what I'm actually saying. Like years of walking around, talking like a pig man. Like doing this impression, but in real life. Like that's how I would behave. It was like the weirdest thing. Like, and I didn't realize I was doing it. I'd like had a stroke or something. But I had it so young that nobody noticed. They just thought I was doing a bit. And so I only realized that I had lived like most of my life as Hamwise J, Einschwein, pig detective, breaking in and out of like voices. It was a really weird one. You know, it was like this, like, wait, what? Like I was walking around for like 4 years, talking, walking, acting like Hamwise J, Einschwein. Like, isn't that crazy? Like real life, you know? And anybody who knows about it knows it, you know, who I'm actually referring to. But it's so weird, like being like, wait, I like was like living as yeah. It's just insane. It's where's my water? It's hungry. There we go. You've got these talking tubes, and by talking, it's like you're vibrating this diaphragm at somebody. And so for the aliens in the book, it was very arousing. We called it Yower. The new sex. And the idea was, like, what if hearing something was as pleasurable as, like, intercourse, you know? Because, I mean, like, the other people had done weirder, right? What was it called? Slaughterhouse 5? That's the time travel one, right? The time tripper? Billy Bishop or something. Anyways, basically, there's these trifaganoggles, and they can see always forwards and back all through time, so they already know what's going to happen, so they're locked into one universe where they create this doomsday device. And we're not locked into that. So that's why, it's important to think that you have free will and important to have a soul. And I think the scariest thing about the spiritual apocalypse has been the loss of people's souls. Like, it's just kind of weird when you think about how things were before and now how they are, you know. It's like a nightmare, you know. But that's how it goes. Yeah, I don't know. Jeez, I thought I'd do better on open mic tonight. Okay, where's I going with all this? I know I was trying to make it sound so serious. I am serious when I'm serious, though. And the trick of the joke of Hamwise is you have to show it to people and see if they get the joke. If they know what it is about Hamwise that makes it funny, you know.
And then you know that person's good. And so we used it as a humanity test because the humor was so weird that the things that we were fighting that looked human but were actually this parallel predatory species, they were easy to hunt down. And so, that's why we had us, the pig detectives. Yeah. And so basically, you're basically tasked with hunting down like ghouls and ghosts and stuff like that. And invariably, you're actually drawn to them to expose them like a magnet, because you have this different type of soul to you because of being a ginkgo, right? And so that's what we were designed for, was hunting these, monstrosities from beyond, the 9 hells of Jupiter. And did anybody ever play what was it called? Hell Jupiter? Oh man, that was good. Oh jeez. You had like this guy and he'd swear like the Doom comic. Oh yeah, this is really funny for like 7 people. Or I guess anybody who played Doom and read the Doom comic. Rip and tear. Yeah, this is like not very funny for most people, right? It's like, oh my gosh, what's going on? So are we listening to like a religious sermon or like a comedian? And that's the hard part about using the voice is, like you have to vibrate it just right, make the tongue move, flap around. And I hope that I'm doing a good job at it. I don't know if I am. It's really hard to be, it's hard to be a ginkgo, It's hard being a mutant, It is. I don't want to take away from how hard it is to be one, because you always have to remember that if you take anything I say seriously, you might be on my most wanted list. That's right. Most wanted for being a dummy. Oinkity oink 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 oink. Ohio. Yeah, I don't know. I hope that everybody finds it really funny, to, just watch me twist and turn and struggle. I think that's the best part, right? Is watching me complain about everything that gets done to me just over and over. It's entertainment, I guess, for you weirdos. Yeah, well, whatever. Maybe I just stop complaining. Maybe I throw away all my time travel notes, huh? Maybe I could do that. Yeah, then good luck building your own chrono-encabulator. That's right, chrono-encabulator. Do you remember the chrono-encabulator? Oh man, it's so good. Yeah, the chrono-encabulator. It's like a really dumb engineering joke. It's like this, like really overly drawn out, overly technical jargon ridden monologue, and I don't know how to do it. It's so good though, and there's like 5 people in the audience that are getting this right now, like ever. They'll get it. It's like, you have the you have this just ridiculous amount of, oh my god, like what happened? Like it's so funny. And so, that was the idea, is we'd just be like, oh man, it's just a trip. And that was the idea behind Lux. It was this Sputnik 11 type drug. And we thought it sounded good because it's like Lux, which is light, and then Lux, like it's deluxe, right? Lux, And so people would be like, deluxe. And so that's how we got the slang, right? Is deluxe as well as light. The light part, I think, was unintentional. It was because it was deluxe. That's what it was originally. So people called it, and then deluxe, and it was this light. They smuggled it in gold foil. And so the foil that was wrapped in was worth probably $2,000 or $3,000. But that was only because you had so little gold on Earth that we couldn't believe that you were after, you were bringing in alien light for the gold. And it was like this way of gold refinement, basically. You would fill it with this alien light. And they found that the alien light inside of these gold eggs was, you were extracting this element from the gold, and it was being sealed inside like an egg, right? And with this light that was sealed inside the gold foil, because what you do is you compress the gold foil until you have it inside this light. And people were like, the more it got compressed, you'd take like a wad of sandstone and compress it into like basically the size of your fist, and it becomes like this gold glass foil, and it's actually pure gold. And inside though is this alien light, and the thing was, we were shipping it in for the gold. We didn't realize we were actually bringing in contamination from an external another sphere, or axial, I guess. So it wasn't so separate from us that it couldn't affect us, because a lot of times that happens. People bring in something from so far out in the sprue that, we don't know what to do with it, even if we confiscate it. It's like, what are you going to do with a book that steals your memories when you look at it and puts it on a page? And, what are you going to do with something like that? And it just kind of erases you and replaces you with the character. And that was the idea with the whole Hamwise, my brother's brain parasites, and now so do you, was this thing about language being a parasite. And even that phrase, you say it, and it's kind of funny. You're saying to somebody, hey, I've got brain parasites, and now so do you. My brother has them. And it's like, oh, but wait a second. If your brother has them, then you probably have them, and you haven't, and you just give them to me. And so it was a way to pass on this brain parasite. Well, that was the joke of it anyways. Of course, there's no way to hide a language parasite in somebody's speech. And so that was kind of the idea, was to find the best ways to, jiggle these diaphragms to make myself sound enough human-like to fit in, not a pig man. And it was really weird, really weird times. Yeah, groovy times, man. And, that was how the future was for me for a long time. I didn't get freed till the tribunal came. It was the weirdest day of my life, because you're a pig man. You just know it. Once you realize you're a pig man, then everybody just acknowledges it, and they just call you a pig man to your face. And it was interesting because they just made it so maybe if we don't tell them that they're hybrids, they won't realize that nobody wants to date them or marry them or have kids with them because they're, not a human, actually. You're part cat or part pig or raccoon, maybe. We were splicing with all kinds of animals at the start of the whole, it was, the dawn of the genetic revolution, right? Once you could 3D print the body, I think that was when, we really hit a different, and you're just pouring in a bunch of, these homunculi they would make, right? And, how the hollow husks that were human that got pleasure from serving others. And it was basically this kind of slave race that, lived in these very docile worlds of just being a servant, and just doing whatever the master wanted to be docile. And so, we had lots of these, and they were called, cat girls. Those ones particularly we called rag dolls, right? And so rag dolls are, these very, you pick them up and they go limp. And so that was kind of the same as the character in the book. If anybody picked her up, she'd just go limp, like a ragdoll kitten. And it was really weird too, a really weird premise. And we looked around and we're like, yeah, you know what, sure, throw spaghetti on the wall, see if it sticks. We were just a bunch of old guys with stokies, sitting around smoking. It was just an excuse for us to write it off. So we had to make it look like we're trying to grow it. Because, of course, it's like, okay, wait, you trademarked a number. And, we all came down to the Hamwise show one day. And we were like, what, this might be something. This is weird enough, And it was a new brand of comedy. We called it hyper comedy, right? And so hyper comedy is where you don't know what's real or what's false anymore. You can't really tell the difference between dream and reality, and nonsense and nonsense. And so that was the idea behind the Hamwise show, of course, was, we had to hide these messages in from the future to save the past, but we just couldn't leave them out in the open. So, we had to hide them within layers and layers and jokes. And, like, honestly, I think some of the gags we would do were a bit overlong, like the eating bits. Which, speaking of which, I should go get some of these. One of my American friends sent me candy. I just ate some. Oh, nerds. Yeah, nerd rope. I had those. Those were good. Chocolate still doesn't taste very good, though. Yeah, chocolate's pretty rough still. And, I don't like that it's rough. Because I used to really like chocolate. Now I can eat like really fine stuff, like the Ghirardellis are okay sometimes, like if they've got a good additional flavor. But otherwise, it's just like chalk. Same with roses. Like I don't think I can smell roses, which is kind of weird. Like you spend your whole life serving other people as this pig man, this detective. And what do you get? You find out that you're not human. And that you were made as part of this Cold War program. And, you find all these terrible things about your history of you and your people. And that you're like the last of your kind. Too weird to live, too rare to die. And it was such a weird time for my life, too. The 2020s, it was like, yeah, this is going to be my year. I was finally optimistic. And the universe responded by just kneecapping me in the world. And I'd spent so long always being negative. Whenever a new pandemic came, I was, it's the end of days. And I'd freak out, it's the end of days. And then I was so positive when it actually happened. I kept on telling myself it'd be over by Christmas. But it was a nightmare. I'm not the same from it either. I'm not sure if that's what granted me the vision, of course, of my wife, my beloved. But she, when I close my eyes, is all I long to see again. And bask in its glorious light shadow. And so that was the idea, was this very weird comedy show called Hamwise J, Einschwein, Pig Detective. And we came up with this comedy idea called hyper comedy, where we would just really try to seem as sincere and convincing as possible. And that anybody with half a brain would be able to figure out what parts are, satirical and what parts were trying to play it straight. And, I think the worst part was people actually thought, like when they sold the franchise, right, they had, like, we don't want anybody to embarrass the owner until, like, now it's, just somebody's fan fiction about one of their characters from Star Wars 3 or something. Because none of them are creating anything new, right? They're just manipulating what's already there. So, I think that's something to think about. And so what happened, we got our recordings in, and we just sorted through them all the best we could, because it was like the worst of times for me, and I made all these tapes to try to cheer myself up, because it was probably the worst time of my life. And I honestly couldn't believe it lasted so long and I changed so much. And I wish I could go back to the way I was before. I wish I could just be back to myself, whoever that was. But it's just like this nightmare.
can't seem to win it. Anywho, hope you liked my sermon. If you didn't, then please like and subscribe to the video. Get it? It's the opposite.